Welcome to our deep dive on the harsh reality of immigrating to the United States and navigating pathways to permanent residency. In this video, we will map out the actual costs, the structural hurdles, and realistic strategies that people use to get through the system. We will transition step by step from big picture to tactical options, and we will finish with key takeaways and resources. Let's begin. Before we get into the details, it's important to frame immigration as a multi-year project that involves legal, financial, and strategic planning. This is not just about submitting forms. It is about aligning your skills, timing, and resources with specific visa categories that have structural constraints. We will now transition into a high-level map of the ecosystem to ground our discussion. This mind map summarizes the system. Reality constraints like costs, random selection for specific categories such as H-1B and DV, and long backlogs, the main strategic paths including academic routes, intra-company transfers, extraordinary ability categories, the diversity lottery and the Canada to TN approach, prerequisites like marriage for dependents, employer sponsorship, and a strong evidence portfolio, and outcomes that include temporary work authorization and, ultimately, permanent residency. The key thesis is that success usually comes from avoiding direct competition in the general labor market by leveraging education, corporate structures, or documented acclaim. Here is our roadmap. We will start with the disclaimer and scope. Then we will examine the employer sponsorship barrier. Next, we will discuss why relationship status significantly impacts dependent eligibility. We will review 5 strategic pathways: academic migration, intra-company transfer, exceptional ability, the diversity visa lottery, and the Canada to TN approach. We will cover costs and timelines, provide a decision tree, and finish with an action plan, resources, and a short quiz. This content is educational and does not constitute legal advice. Immigration policies, fees, quotas, evidence standards, and processing times are subject to change. Always confirm details with official sources like USCIS, the Department of State, and Customs and Border Protection. For personalized advice, consult a licensed immigration attorney. Many workers receive offers that later fall through once employers fully understand the costs and risks of sponsorship. For H-1B workers, employers must handle attorney fees, filing fees, and compliance, and the process is subject to an annual lottery. Over multiple years, the cost exposure can reach high 5 to low 6 figures, when including repeat filings, premium processing to meet business timelines, recruitment and compliance costs for permanent residency steps, and internal administrative time. Smaller firms often decline sponsorship due to the financial and operational burden, regardless of candidate quality. Therefore, success is not only about skill but also about the structural feasibility for the employer. This table illustrates typical H-1B related costs. USCIS filing fees include the I-129 base fee and the ACWIA training fee, which is $750 for smaller employers and $1,500 for larger ones, plus the $500 anti-fraud fee. As of recent fee updates, many employers also pay a $600 asylum program fee per I-129 or I-140. Premium processing is optional but commonly used, currently in the several $1,000s range. Attorney fees vary widely. Recruitment and compliance costs for perm and related steps add further expense. If the candidate is not selected in the lottery or changes employers, repeat filings increase the total. Over multiple years, the exposure often exceeds $10,000 and can be much higher when moving toward permanent residency. Dependency rules matter greatly. In most U.S. non-immigrant categories, derivative status requires legal marriage. Long-term unmarried partners typically do not qualify unless a specific category provides for it. For F1 students, F2 spouses cannot work. For H-1B workers, H-4 spouses can work only if the principal has an approved I-140 and the spouse obtains an employment authorization document. L2 spouses are employment authorized incident to status and can work without separate EAD once classified properly, often annotated as L2S. O3 and TD spouses generally cannot work. Plan logistics such as income, childcare, and healthcare in advance. This comparison highlights that legal marriage typically unlocks derivative status for many non-immigrant categories. However, work authorization for spouses varies. L2 spouses are employment authorized. H-4 spouses may work only after the principal's I-140 approval and EAD issuance, while F2, O3, and TD spouses generally cannot work. Unmarried partners usually cannot derive status and must qualify independently, which increases both cost and complexity and complicates timing and logistics. These are the primary realistic strategies for those without family sponsorship or refugee status. Academic migration requires proof of funds, restricts work for the student, and bars it for F2 spouses, and still relies on the H-1B lottery for long-term employment. Intra-company transfer requires you to establish a track record within a multinational abroad, and then transfer under L1. L2 spouses can work. Exceptional ability categories such as O1, EB1A, or EB2 NIW demand extensive evidence of achievements or national interest. The diversity visa lottery offers a small chance each year without sponsorship, but has strict eligibility and numerous scams. Always use official portals. Finally, a long-term strategy is to gain Canadian or Mexican citizenship and then use the TN category for certain professions. This requires being in one of the listed occupations and does not directly lead to permanent residency, though it can be a stepping stone. This decision tree helps a viewer quickly map their situation to a viable path. If you possess extraordinary achievements, you look to O1, EB1A, or NIW. If you work at a multinational, the L1 path is appropriate. If you can fund U.S. studies, you may try F1 leading to OPT, and then attempt the H-1B lottery. If you are from an eligible country, you should apply to the DV lottery annually. If you can build toward Canadian or Mexican citizenship, and your profession is on the TN list, that provides a non-immigrant work option. If none apply, explore niche categories like E2 investor, J1 exchange, or remote first roles with eventual internal transfer. This flowchart visually encodes the decision logic. It starts at the individual's profile and branches based on extraordinary achievements, current employer structure, financial ability to pursue U.S. studies, diversity visa eligibility, and long-term feasibility of Canadian or Mexican citizenship, followed by TN status. If none of these apply, explore alternative categories like E2 or J1, or corporate strategies like remote first work leading to internal transfer. The chart converges on planning for permanent residency timelines once a work status is secured. To move forward, decide whether your primary objective is a work visa, permanent residency, or both. Map your assets, including education, publications, awards, the size and presence of your employer in the U.S., available funds, language ability, and geographical mobility. Score each pathway across cost, time, probability of success, and family fit. If extraordinary ability might apply, build a documented evidence portfolio. If academic is viable, prioritize funded programs, confirm STEM eligibility for a 24-month OPT extension, and plan for CAP if an H-1B petition is filed. If corporate transfer is the target, focus your job search on multinationals with proven relocation programs. Add key dates to your calendar, such as H-1B registration in March and DV entries in the fall. Finally, consult an immigration attorney to validate feasibility and identify risks. This table condenses who each path fits, the typical time to first entry, cost level, and the main risks. The academic path can be fast to start but expensive and reliant on the H-1B lottery. The L1 path depends on eligibility within a multinational and internal competition. Extraordinary ability routes demand extensive documentation and face subjective adjudication. The DV lottery has very low odds but minimal upfront cost. The Canada to TN route requires citizenship in Canada or Mexico and an occupation on the TN list. It does not directly lead to permanent residency. This pie chart shows that while filing fees take a large share, legal guidance, premium processing to meet operational deadlines, recruitment, compliance, and internal administrative time add up. Employers view the commitment holistically, which explains why many avoid sponsorship despite strong candidates. This example timeline demonstrates a common progression for a student. Begin the program, use OPT after graduation, extend with STEM if eligible, attempt the H-1B lottery annually, and once in H-1B status pursue perm labor certification and an I-140 immigrant petition. With an approved I-140, H-1B extensions beyond the 6-year limit may be available. Finally, when the priority date becomes current, file adjustment of status and wait for approval. The actual timing depends on country of chargeability, category, and backlogs. Here are official resources to verify details and monitor changes. USCIS General Working Categories, H-1B Program Information, OPT and STEM OPT guidance from ICE. O1 criteria. Green card categories including EB1A and EB2 NIW. L1 Intra-Company Transfer information, the official Diversity Visa Program portal, the TN Professions list under USMCA, and the Department of State Visa Bulletin for priority date movement. Quiz time. Which dependent status is generally employment authorized incident to status without needing a separate employment authorization document? F2, H4 in all cases, L2 spouse, or TD. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is the L2 spouse, properly annotated, who is employment authorized incident to status. H4 spouses require the principal's I-140 approval and a separate EAD to work, while F2 and TD spouses cannot work. Second quiz question. Which pathway offers permanent residency through random selection without employer sponsorship? O1, Diversity Visa Lottery, L1, or TN? You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is the Diversity Visa Lottery. It provides a chance at permanent residency without employer sponsorship, although the odds are low and eligibility rules apply. These are the most important points. Employer sponsorship is costly and risky, so build strategies that account for that. Relationship status directly affects dependent eligibility and household income. The most reliable paths avoid direct labor market competition by using education, corporate infrastructure, or documented achievements. Expect multi-year costs and uncertainty, and verify details regularly with official sources and legal professionals. To conclude, you must understand the system and then choose the path that matches your profile. Sequence your steps so that you secure lawful status in the near term while planning your permanent residency strategy early, and track deadlines on a calendar. Maintain a rigorous evidence record of your achievements. Control the variables you can, and reduce exposure to randomness by pursuing multiple avenues where possible. Thank you for watching. If you found this valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. In the comments, tell us which pathway you are considering and what hurdles you want us to cover next. Your feedback shapes future episodes.